Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into dense research so you can get the key takeaways fast.
Glad to be here.
Today we're looking at something pretty critical. A serious drop in strategy quality across businesses.
Yeah, it's a bit worrying, honestly.
Our mission is to figure out what the real winners, these strategy champions, these top economic performers, what they actually do differently. How do they link that big vision to, well, actual results?
And it's urgent, The sources we looked at show that only about 1 in 5 companies, maybe 20%, thinks they even have a high-quality strategy right now.
1 in 5. That's low.
It is. And we're in a time where strategy, making these big, tough, kind of hard-to-undo choices when everything's uncertain, that's basically the whole game.
And that uncertainty, it's not just a feeling, is it? The baseline level has, what, doubled since the 90s?
More than doubled, actually. And then you layer on top all this growing complexity. Think about AI disruption, geopolitical shifts. Suddenly, the number of things strategists need to juggle just explodes.
Right. It's not just one big wave. It's like cross currents everywhere.
Exactly. And you see the struggle in the numbers. A recent survey, 2024-2025, found only 21% of executives felt their strategies passed even 4 of the 10 tests of strategy.
Only 21% passing just 4 tests.
Yeah, and that figure is down 40% compared to about 15 years ago. A 40% drop.
Wow. So strategy quality is genuinely falling off a cliff then.
It really looks that way.
And the impact for you listening, it's huge because of this thing called the economic profit power curve. It's quite stark, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This curve, it measures the real economic value captured, profit after you account for the cost of capital as a true gain. And it's incredibly concentrated.
Concentrated how?
The top group, the top quintile, these are the champions we're talking about, they capture nearly 90% of all the economic surpluses out there. 90%.
That's staggering. So the winners take almost everything.
Pretty much. And the gap between them and the companies struggling at the bottom, it's doubled in just the last couple of decades. Getting strategy wrong isn't just about slowing down, it's about potentially getting left behind for good.
Okay, so the stakes are incredibly high. If the reward is that massive, what exactly sets these strategy champions apart? Let's define them first.
Sure. So we define a strategy champion as a company that either managed to climb into that top quintile of economic profit performance or was already there and stayed there over a 5-year stretch. They're the consistent winners, financially speaking.
Right. Now, when most people hear strategy, they think about the big idea, the brilliant design, that aha moment. Is that the main difference? Are champions just better at dreaming up plans?
That's a really common thought, but it's only half the story, maybe less. The key insight from the research is this. Champions are good at designing bold strategies, yes. But where they really outperform everyone else, it's in mobilizing the organization to actually execute that strategy.
Mobilizing, so getting people and resources lined up behind the plan.
Exactly. They're stronger than the stragglers across all 12 building blocks of strategy, sure, but the data pinpoints the biggest gap, the largest difference in capability, squarely in that mobilization phase.
Interesting. So it's less about the blueprint and more about the construction process, maybe?
Yeah.
But tell me about this framework, this strategy method with 12 building blocks.
Yeah. The strategy method is basically the structure used to assess how companies perform. It groups these 12 fundamental building blocks into 3 main phases. You've got design, that's the vision part, then mobilization, which acts like the bridge, and finally execution, delivering the results.
Design, mobilization, execution.
Right. And the strategy itself is that vital connection, the bridge, that takes you from your overall purpose to concrete actions and outcomes.
Okay, so design gives you the what, and execution is the did we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying mobilization, the bridge in the middle, is where the champions really pull away. Why is that phase such a powerful differentiator?
Well, mobilization is where the rubber meets the road internally. It's the process of turning those strategic choices, the ones written down, into real organizational readiness. This is where internal inertia, maybe politics, really starts to push back.
Ah, the messy human stuff.
Precisely. And the capability difference here is it's stark. Champions have a 20 percentage point net advantage in strength over the stragglers, specifically in the mobilization phase. That's the biggest gap across the entire strategy process.
20 percentage points, that's significant. And it really does sound like the graveyard where good strategies often end up then. So what are the crucial things champions do in mobilization to make sure their strategy actually, survives the journey inside the company?
There are three really critical ones that stand out. First, reallocating resources. Champions are pretty ruthless about this. They actively shift money, people, management attention towards the things that support the strategy.
Okay, directing resources.
But just as important, maybe more so, they're really good at stopping work that doesn't align or isn't performing, cutting off the things that drain resources away from the core strategy.
That sounds hard. That's where you get turf wars, pet projects.
Oh, absolutely. It creates real organizational friction. Telling a successful division lead their favorite initiative is being cut. That takes backbone. But champions manage to push through it.
Okay, so resource reallocation is number one. What's next?
Number two is embedding the strategy into plans and budgets. This is crucial. If your operating model, your org chart, your financial plans, your targets, if they don't actually support the new strategy, then it's just a nice document, a wish list.
Right, the budget becomes the strategy's real-world expression.
Exactly. Embedding it properly helps bridge what people call the knowing-doing gap. Everyone knows the strategy, but are they doing things differently day to day? The plans and budget make that happen.
Makes sense. And the third key part of mobilization.
The third is empowering, engaging, and governing. This is about accountability, making sure individual leaders have clear targets tied to the strategy and incentives that align with it. Champions are deliberate about putting the right talent in charge of driving specific strategic initiatives. They assign clear ownership, like a pilot in command.
Assigning ownership.
Yeah.
No ambiguity.
No ambiguity. It ensures someone wakes up every morning focused on making that piece of the strategy succeed.
You know, that whole mobilization phase, it reminds me of something the strategist Andrew Marshall supposedly said. Before any strategy can really affect a competitor, it first has to survive your own system, your own organization.
That's a perfect way to put it. Mobilization is that internal battle for survival. You essentially have to make the organization ready for its own strategy, overcome its own antibodies.
Okay, so mobilization is the critical hinge. But presumably, it needs something solid to hinge on. The design phase has to be strong too, right?
Yeah.
What makes champions better at the very beginning, during design?
Absolutely. A brilliant mobilization effort can't save a weak strategy. In the design phase, champions really excel at aligning on the strategic challenge. This isn't just about getting everyone to nod along, it's about building a shared, fact-based understanding of the situation among the leadership team.
So everyone's arguing from the same set of facts.
Yes, debating the same reality. And a key strength here is their ability to identify the external trends that will have the biggest impact on their business, and then actually leaning into those trends, not ignoring them. Think Jeff Bezos always talking about focusing on what won't change, but also relentlessly riding the wave of e-commerce adoption.
So embracing the external forces rather than fighting them. That takes confidence, boldness even.
It really does. It requires what the research calls strategic courage. And that leads to the second design strength. Committing to a bold strategy. Champions make coherent choices. They force real trade-offs that are often hard to reverse. This needs buy-in and courage from the CEO, the top team, and the board.
No trying to please everyone or hedge every bet.
Exactly. They avoid watered-down consensus strategies. Instead, they craft compelling strategic narratives that clearly articulate how they intend to create value differently.
Okay, strong design sets the foundation. Mobilization builds the bridge. Let's talk about the final phase, execution. Once the strategy is rolling, how do champions keep the momentum going?
They maintain focus through driving and supporting performance. This is where they shift from being passive observers, just tracking metrics, to becoming active problem solvers.
Active problem solvers, how so?
They actively manage performance to spot the barriers, the roadblocks that are holding back delivery, and then they work to break those barriers down. They're constantly enabling the teams on the ground.
Can you give an example of that? What does that look like in practice?
Well, think about DBS Bank. They famously overhauled their performance management. Instead of just looking at historical KPIs, they built systems that flagged execution bottlenecks almost in real time. Then, leaders were expected to focus their energy on actively unblocking those issues every single week.
Ah, so it's proactive intervention, not just after-the-fact reporting.
Precisely. It's about removing friction as it happens, not waiting for the monthly review to tell you you're already off course.
That's a significant shift in mindset. And I imagine the second execution strength involves adapting when things inevitably change.
Absolutely. That's testing assumptions and adapting. But here's the thing. Smart adaptation requires discipline. Champions insist on having clearly documented strategic assumptions right from the design phase. They need the why behind each choice written down.
Why is documenting assumptions so critical?
Because when results start to deviate, they can quickly ask, is this because we're executing poorly? Or is it because a fundamental assumption we made about the market or technology or a competitor is actually wrong? Knowing that difference is crucial for making intelligent adjustments versus just flailing around.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You need to know why you need to change course. This brings us back to uncertainty. The research really stresses that good strategy isn't one size fits all. Champions match their approach to the level of uncertainty they face.
That's right. It's about having the right strength for the context. So, under low uncertainty, what they call level 1, a clear enough future, the priority for champions is exploring value-creating bold moves.
Bold moves in stable times.
Yes, seeking or even creating discontinuities that are powerful enough to maybe dislodge incumbents or lock in a lasting advantage. Think of Walmart's huge early investment in supply chain automation and logistics. The environment was relatively stable, so they made a massive bet to build an enduring cost advantage.
Using predictability to build a moat.
Yeah.
Okay. But what about when the future is murky? Levels 2, 3, or 4, uncertainty. What's the approach then?
When uncertainty is high, the priority shifts. It becomes more about aligning on the strategic challenges quickly and effectively. Boldness is still needed, but it's less about one giant irreversible bet and more about committing with conviction to specific opportunities while actively managing the risks, often through phased investments or building options.
So more like placing smart bets and being ready to adjust.
Kind of. Think about Microsoft's big pivot to become a cloud-first company years ago. That was a huge strategic shift into an uncertain future, but it provided a clear direction, a unifying purpose that aligned the entire organization, even as they had to adapt specifics along the way.
Right, like setting a clear direction of travel even if the exact path isn't fully mapped.
Exactly. And this high uncertainty approach really depends on continuous adaptation. There's this idea sometimes called the bicycle theory. You know, it's much easier to steer and adjust course when the bike is actually moving forward, when you have momentum. Trying to perfectly course correct while standing still is almost impossible.
Keep moving, keep learning, keep adapting. I like that. So for you listening, if you want your organization to start climbing that steep economic profit power curve to become more like these champions, where's the starting point? What's the first step?
The absolute first step has to be setting clear, shared standards for what good strategy even looks like in your organization. The research found that stragglers, the companies at the bottom, are nearly twice as likely to have little or no agreement internally on what high-quality strategy actually means.
If you can't agree on the target, you'll never hit it.
You just can't. You need common criteria, common language. And second, strategy needs to be treated like a core capability, something worth investing in.
Investing how?
Well, champions are twice as likely to have dedicated budgets specifically for improving their strategy development and execution capabilities. They invest in the process itself. And critically, they focus on speed, but the right speed.
What does right speed mean?
It means they're 1.7 times more likely to consistently make strategic decisions at an appropriate pace. Not necessarily faster all the time, but not getting bogged down unnecessarily, making the call when it needs to be made.
And for forcing that rigor, that clear thinking, the sources mention the 10 tests of strategy again as a useful tool.
Yeah, they're highlighted as valuable for fostering rigorous debate. They push you beyond superficial agreement. Questions like, will this strategy beat the market? Or does it translate into clear actions and resource commitments? They force you to really pressure test the strategy's coherence and its potential impact.
It's a high bar.
It does, and that rigor, that discipline, is what enables champions to manage those 12 building blocks: design, mobilization, execution, as a unified system. Ultimately, they win because that brilliant design vision doesn't get lost. It gets protected, amplified, and actually delivered through that critical, often undervalued mobilization phase.
A unified system with mobilization as the crucial amplifier. That's a powerful takeaway. Okay, this has been a really insightful deep dive, so thinking about this for you, the listener. We've talked a lot about documenting assumptions for effective adaptation.
Right. So here's a final thought, maybe a challenge for you. What's the crucial, perhaps unwritten assumption underpinning a key strategic decision in your organization right now?
An unwritten assumption, like what?
It could be anything. An assumption about how customers will behave, how quickly a technology will mature, what competitors won't do, maybe regulatory stability, something fundamental that if it turned out to be wrong tomorrow, would immediately call that strategic decision into question.
Find that hidden assumption.
Find it, write it down, make it explicit, and then, crucially, figure out how you can start testing it, even in small ways. That act, making the implicit explicit and testable, that's a huge step on the path from being a straggler towards becoming a strategy champion.
Excellent food for thought. Identify that unwritten linchpin and start testing it. That's your starting line. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.